From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting, originating from the County Administrative Center located at 1115 Truxtun Avenue, Bakersfield, California. Kern County's vision is to create and maintain a customer-centered county government designed to garner the confidence, support, and trust of the people we serve. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Okay, board to reconvene. Madam Clerk, good morning to you. Would you please call the roll?
Supervisor Gleason.
I was going to say go Tigers, but I think I'll say go Eagles.
There you go.
Supervisor Scrivener.
Here.
Supervisor Maggard.
Here.
Supervisor Couch.
Here.
Supervisor Perez.
Here. Thank you and good morning, Kern County. Welcome to the Tuesday, January 14, 2020 meeting of the Board of Supervisors. We will begin today's meeting with the flag salute led by Darren Carr, Bakersfield Christian High School head football coach. Following the flag salute, please remain standing for a moment of prayer, silence, or meditation, whichever you prefer.
Salute pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. I would like to call Mr. Nick Colin, Director of Animal Services, to come out with our Pet of the Week. And look at this. Thank you so much. A crowd pleaser, no doubt. I can tell. And look at this precious baby. Nick, who is, oh, look at that.
Good morning. This morning's pet of the week is Daisy. Daisy's about a 5-year-old long-haired Chihuahua. She's starting to relax now, thanks to counsel.
Oh, very good.
She's available for adoption Thursday morning. She's about 6 or 7 pounds. She's full-grown, an adult dog. She's not going to get much bigger than that. And she's going to make somebody a very good family pet.
Good point, Supervisor. Well, she is a doll, and she went right for the microphone, so a little Madam Chair there as well. Very, very cool. I really love the opportunity to showcase this part of Kern County. We have been very aggressive. This board has been committed to being good to our little furry friends in many ways, through spay and neuter and many opportunities to show that every living creature here matters and that you can take this one home too. So good luck in fighting over her, because she is precious and will make somebody a very, very happy family. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Good luck, Daisy.
Got you, Daisy.
Very good. Thank you, Nick. Agendas for today's meetings are located at the tables at the back of the chamber for anyone wishing to follow along. We will begin by considering the consent agenda. All items listed with a capital C and A for consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by county staff. Consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion. If a member of the audience wishes to comment or ask questions regarding an item or items on the consent agenda, they may do so prior to a vote being taken on the consent agenda. A member of this board may also remove an item from the consent agenda and to be considered in its listed sequence based on its number. An opportunity for any member of the public to address the board concerning the item before action is taken. A member of the public may also comment on any closed session item. The agenda on page 2, the consent agenda, includes on page 2 items 5 and 8, through 8, excuse me. On page 3, items 9 through 13. I'm sorry, excuse me. On page 2, items 5 and 8. On page 3, items 9 through 13. Page 4, items 16 through 20. Page 5, items 21 and 22. Are there any members of the audience who would like to comment or ask to provide input? Okay, seeing no interest in doing so, I will ask my colleagues for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
The motion is second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Okay, very good. I see that we have some youngsters here with us that we're going to acknowledge today with a certificate of recognition. And because they've got to get back to the important job of being educated, I'm going to take number 3 out of order so that we can get you back to where you're supposed to be as fast as possible. Number 3 is a certificate of recognition honoring Bakersfield Christian High School football team as the 2019 State CIF Division 3A champions. And Mick Gleason is going to provide this honor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do we need a vote on this?
No.
Thank you. Nice coming down, Coach. Thank you. Get in the camera here, Coach. Come on. Get in the camera. Anyone sense maybe a little overdose of testosterone in here today? Or is it just me?
I'm on fence really well.
I got a couple words to say, Coach, about you and your team. And I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank the team for coming. I want to thank your coaching staff and all the leaders in that school and that organization that are committed to success. That's what Kern County is all about. And Bakersfield High School, Bakersfield Christian had a chance to establish that today. Did that for you, Mike.
Mick, should they come down?
We will.
Okay,
We will. There's just a whole ton of them.
okay.
So we had a great year last year. We did it first year ever, second time, and the first time ever, second time in the last couple of years where you competed well. It doesn't happen without a strong sense of commitment, brotherhood, of working together, of leadership, of followership, of people who are willing to commit to a sense of excellence and to commit each other to that same cause. And that's not easy to do today. And it's so remarkable to have that when that happens, that these young men will have that opportunity to rejoice and celebrate that for the rest of their lives. So on behalf of you, your team, your coaching staff, we have a certificate of recognition presented to the Bakersfield Christian High School football team in recognition of your exceptional commitment to success and triumph as 2019 State CIF Division 3A football champs for exemplary public service and civic contributions to the community of Kern County. It's signed by all 5 supervisors. Coach, I'm going to give you the mic, and I want to thank you on behalf of the Board of Supervisors for your commitment to excellence. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Chief, over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, just on behalf of the, our staff and our players and our school, we really appreciate you guys having us out. It's Bakersfield's home to us and my family. We've been here a long time, and now we're raising our kids here. We wouldn't raise them anywhere else. So we appreciate it. Thanks for having us, and glad we could bring it home for you guys. Thank you.
Congrats.
Absolutely.
Oh, my goodness, wow.
I think I'm the smallest guy here. I'm still the smallest guy. We're going to get pictures. We have pictures coming up here. Everybody's on the TV, so come on in. Get in front. Everybody squish in. Everybody think your mother's cooking. Come on in.
I suddenly feel very old.
Get on your toes.
My goodness, happened so fast. How fantastic. Congrats.
Congratulations. Good job.
Thank you, congratulations. Now, please go back to school.
We're good. We'll watch the rest.
Okay.
I don't want to leave.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. How fabulous. Congratulations. Great energy, too. Nice job, Coach.
Maybe they're really interested in county government and they want to stick around.
The coach is such a natural, too. What a great speaker. What a great investment into these young people. Thank you. I'm going to move to item number 1, which is a proclamation for January 2020 as Human Trafficking Awareness Month in Kern County. Supervisor Scrivener is going to make this proclamation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Motion on proclamation?
Second.
Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here before you today on a very important topic. I have with me a few people. I'm going to present this to Aaron Gillespie, who's with the Department of Human Services, also with the Kern Coalition Against Human Trafficking. According to the California Attorney General's Office, human trafficking is a form of modern-day slavery that profits from the exploitation of our most vulnerable populations. The U.S. Department of State estimates that between 14,000 and 18,000 victims are trafficked into the United States every single year. The Kern Coalition Against Human Trafficking was established in 2012 to educate the public and facilitate a cohesive effort that combats human trafficking here in Kern County through prevention, protection, prosecution, and partnerships. The Kern Coalition of Human Trafficking advocates for a victim-centered and evidence-based approach that results in effective protection and prosecution. They provide outreach to vulnerable populations and training for law enforcement, healthcare providers, service providers, and other interested parties. And so, Aaron, it's my pleasure on behalf of the board to present this proclamation to you. The Board of Supervisors of the County of Kern, State of California, has officially proclaimed January 2020 as Human Trafficking Awareness Month in Kern County, and this recognition has been signed by our Honorable Chair, Leticia Perez. If you'd like to say a few words to us, and thank you for all of your efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and members of the board, for this proclamation. My name again is Aaron Gillespie, and I'm a program specialist with the Department of Human Services. It is a privilege that I have been given the opportunity to stand here today, not only as a member of the Kern Coalition Against Human Trafficking Coalition and Committee, KCAT, but also as the Department of Human Services coordinator for the Commercially Sexually Exploited Children's Program. Every January, we celebrate Human Trafficking Awareness Month, which is very fitting that it is held in January as we begin a fresh year and we strive to make New Year's resolutions. This is an opportunity for us to recommit ourselves to the things that matter most, to remind ourselves of why we do the work that we do. It is also an opportunity to celebrate those who have survived and to recognize that survivors are more than their story. They are leaders. They are educators, students, business owners, athletes, authors, moms and dads, and the list goes on. In the last 2 years, we have received 175 referrals into the Child Protective Services hotline alleging human trafficking and exploitation of our children. We have identified approximately 200 who have been victims of exploitation and hundreds more who are at risk of becoming victims. The Commercially Sexually Exploited Children's Unit has worked with victims from every part of Kern County, from every race, ethnicity, and gender identification. We cannot do this work alone. This is why we have been out in the community and providing human trafficking awareness training to hundreds of community partners last year alone, and hundreds of children, providing them prevention education. I would like to thank Dustin Contreras and Sandy Wu, who both volunteer their time as co-directors of KCAT. KCAT continues to stand by the 4 Ps paradigm: prevention, protection, prosecution, and partnership, with over 50+ organizations committed in this fight. The 4 Ps paradigm is the fundamental framework that keeps KCAT going. I would like to take this opportunity to thank some of our paradigm partners who have contributed a great deal to this cause within their respective Ps. Under prevention, I would like to thank my director, Dina Murphy, the Department of Human Services, and the entire CSEC unit that is here today, supervised by Angela Look, who are out investigating and providing services to our most vulnerable children. Cynthia Giamara and Tawana Johnson with Canyon Hills Church, Leslie Painter with Canyon Hills Church and the newly developed KCAT Freedom Bridge, Diana Cisneros with Hope Rising, Angie Zuniga, Victim Advocate, Ashley South and LV Martinez, coordinators with the Kern County Sheriff's Office Crime Prevention, Kelsey Brackett with the Bakersfield Police Department, Jennifer Jensen with Global Family and the Daughters Project, Tiara King and Kristen Smith with Retain the Night. Jane Tucker, citizen volunteer. Under protection and prosecution, District Attorney Cynthia Zimmer and Deputy District Attorney Esther Charlerev. Sheriff Donnie Youngblood and Sergeant Jim Knoll with the Kern County Sheriff's Department. Former Chief Lyle Martin, Sergeant Daniel McAfee, and Detective Brian West with the Bakersfield Police Department. The California Highway Patrol. Katrina Garcia, Supervising Juvenile Probation Officer with the Kern County Probation Department. Angela Scott, Assistant United States Attorney. Supervising Special Agent Jose Moreno and Special Agent Dave Hunter with the FBI. Supervising Agent Anthony Raffelli and Agent Veronica Pike with the Department of Homeland Security. Elizabeth Relis with Victim Witness Advocate with the Family Justice Center. And under partnership, Carol Beecroft with the Women's Center High Desert, Louis Gill with the Alliance Against Family Violence and Sexual Assault, Mari Perez Dowling with the United Way of Kern County, and so many others. Thank you, Chair and Board of Supervisors, for recognizing this month as Human Trafficking Awareness Month and for your continued support of ending human trafficking in Kern County. We will be at the Liberty Bell today at noon for an additional proclamation, and we will also be hosting a community event with survivor advocate and author Rebecca Bender to help raise awareness on February 13th at Maya Cinemas at 6:00 p.m. And I end with this quote. At the end of the day, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about who you've lifted up, who you've made better, and what you've given back. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Team?
Kern County Guardian Angels right there. God bless your hands and your work, really. Number two this morning is a certificate of recognition to Ruben Rosales Sr. for leadership, volunteer service, and ongoing commitment to Hart Park cleanup efforts, and appropriately, Supervisor Magritte will give this recognition.
Good morning, colleagues. It is my pleasure this morning to come forward to come before you to present a certificate of recognition to Ruben Rosales. I try to give neighborhood hero awards to people who do extraordinary things in the 3rd District periodically, and certainly Ruben is one of the people that that is very, very worthy of being known as a neighborhood hero. Now, he wouldn't do that on his own because he couldn't do anything without Frances helping him. Frances is his wife.
True.
That's right. I'm sure. Get up, Ruben. It's time to make pie. Right? That's a normal thing in your house. And then with these extraordinary volunteers behind him that help accomplish the great work that he does, and I'll let him say something about them in a moment. But if you don't know, Ruben and Frances are the owners of Happy Jacks. Have my colleagues all been to Happy Jacks? Yeah, it's a fun place. I went in there. I'd been there after I'd been there a number of times. Ruben comes up to me and says, "How come you always order a hot dog? This is a hamburger joint." And I like hot dogs, but they make good hamburgers too. And the coconut cream pie is just like my mom's. So
Your mother?
No, he's not my mother, and neither is Frances. Although Frances sometimes kind of acts like she's my mother. Yeah. But they are wonderful people, and Ruben does many, many extraordinary things in our community. But this morning we are recognizing him for leading this great group of people behind him and others that aren't here this morning to go out to Hart Park and walk up and down the bank, walk throughout the park area, filling dozens and dozens of bags of refuse that people, for some unknown reason, leave along the edge of the river. And they have done this for many, many years. Afterwards, after they go and volunteer and do all that, they come back and have a great breakfast at the restaurant. So it's just a great thing that he does. So he's inspiring. He never looks worried. I talked to him on Sunday, and he said, I don't like all this attention. It's because the TV did something and the paper did something, and he's not comfortable with that. So today I'm causing him to endure the pain of being recognized, because he is an example to all of Kern County of what a difference one person and his friends can do. So thank you very, very much, Ruben. You are indeed a neighborhood hero. I hope you enjoy this certificate that will remind you of that. And if you'd like to say something, you can.
Well,
If you don't,
really-
it's okay. You can say
That's
something.
right.
Yeah.
Really, my wife is my backbone. She takes care of all the phone calls and whatnot, but I couldn't do it without all this great volunteers here. I wouldn't be able to do it. So I appreciate them very much, and thank you very much.
We're going to face that way. That way.
Thank you.
Nice to see you all. Okay, thank you. Good to see you. Thanks, guys, for what you do.
Okay, thanks for the recognition.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for what you do. Randy, nice to see you. You're completely retired? Yeah. Good for you. He's a hard worker.
Okay. Thank you very much. Moving right along, item number 4 is a request of Jamie Stewart, Child and Family Services Coordinator at the Kern County Network for Children, representing the Children's Dream Center, to address the board on the needs of foster youth transitioning to adulthood and highlighting the Dream Center's work toward helping youth gain employment and housing. I had the incredible privilege of coming and watching your operation in full swing, and I was really floored, and my heart was so full of gratitude to see what you and your team are doing there. I was totally stunned to learn, and I think my colleagues will be as well, that foster youth, as you told me, within 4 years of aging out of the system, 50% become homeless. That is one of the most astonishing statistics that I have ever heard. As a person who was raised along foster children, some sense of the remarkable complications involved in stabilizing and really loving and finding loving, supportive environments for foster youth. And so I am so grateful to you, and I'm so grateful that you're here to share with my colleagues some of what you're doing. We had a fabulous job fair there. I understand folks were hired on the spot to do work in this community and be part of the workforce and be part of the citizenship of Kern County. Right. So I am really grateful to you. I'm glad you're here. Thank you. And the floor is yours. I'd like this community and my colleagues to know more of what you do.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. My name is Jamie Stewart, and I'm with the Kern County Network for Children in the Dream Center. We're a one-stop resource center that serves more than 800 current and former foster youth a year up to age 25, and I'm excited to give you a brief update today. So we're working to make a difference because statewide the outcomes for foster youth are poor when they exit care. 33% earn neither a high school diploma or a GED. Fewer than 50% are employed within 12 to 18 months. 33% evidence mental health problems. 25% are incarcerated within 2 years. 25% are homeless within the first year of leaving care. 50% are homeless within the first 4 years of leaving care, compared to only 4% of their non-foster peers. Only 3% achieve a 4-year degree by age 26, and the research tells us very clearly that their brains are still developing until age 25. If Tom Corson, our director, were here today, he would tell you that the Dream Center is a building. We're able to make a difference because these amazing partners have come together under one roof to innovate and collectively help make dreams happen. We're fortunate to have Supervisor Gleason on our board and the directors of many of these agencies. Many of them and their management teams are here with us today. So the Department of Human Services is on site with AB 12 extended foster care social workers, independent living skills social workers, CSAC, CalFresh, and Medi-Cal. The probation department has dedicated 5 juvenile probation officers to the Dream Center. Mental health services are available when the kids need them, whether it be crisis, counseling, or substance abuse treatment. Employers training resources on site ready to help them with a range of employment services, as is the Department of Rehabilitation for youth who have special needs and want to gain employment. The Kern County Network for Children is providing youth with their basic needs, engagement, support, and advocacy. And we're partnering with the Housing Authority to help our homeless youth to get the housing that they desperately need. Public Health Department is on site to provide health education and linkages. The Superintendent of Schools Office Foster Youth Services Program is providing educational advocacy and assistance with college. Westchester Columbus has stepped up to provide a weekly hot meal for our youth and bus passes and work clothes when they get employment. The community donates clothes, hygiene, household items, baby, food items, and money for other needs. And the Kern County Superintendent of Schools Office provides us with administrative support and an amazing facility. We're not grant funded. We're able to simply make this happen by sharing operating costs. We truly are a one-stop center. In addition to services, homeless youth can shower, do their laundry. All youth can access the basic needs items that they need. They can use our computers, our address for their mail, our phone, attend workshops, cooking classes, whatever they need. We're fortunate to be able to make it happen for them. So we're continually evolving. Our newest service is helping homeless youth to get housed. Being young and homeless is a whole different level of homelessness. They're magnets for human traffickers. Drugs are free. Belongings are for the taking. They're continually assaulted. They need clothes, food, a shower. They have no transportation, no sleep, and pressure to get a job, in addition to being victims of abuse when they were younger. To make housing possible for them, the Housing Authority of the County of Kern and the Kern County Homeless Collaborative have housing assistance. The Behavioral Health and Recovery Services Department had funds to support case management services for the youth so that they could be successful in their housing. And they're funding 2 positions for the Network for Children because we have the relationships with the youth and a continuum of supportive services under one roof so that we can help them to be successful. And I'm proud to say that since only January of 2019, 55 homeless former foster youth have been matched to continuum of care programs. 45 homeless foster youth have been housed. 28 have been linked to mental health services. 87% have maintained their housing, and just because this partnership is formed together. The most common need youth have is a job. So skill building and job search happens at the Dream Center thanks to Employers Training Resource. We have T. Johnson on site that's available to help them with job search, resumes, mock interviews when they need them. If they get a job or a job interview, we'll give them bus passes, interview, work clothes, whatever they need to be successful. And we're beginning to develop relationships with employers such as Sentinel Peak, and thanks to Supervisor Perez, Field did that job fair, and we had 59 youth apply, and 10 of them were hired that day on the spot. Flood Ministries and Supervisor Gleason's office has recently hired our youth. We partner with the Department of Human Services Welfare to Work program for our youth who are parenting and want to be employed. And we're hoping to develop more business partners in the near future. I want to thank your board, our amazing partner agencies and organizations, and the community for helping make a difference in the lives of transitional age youth. They absolutely deserve it. They matter. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Excuse me. I said you are one of many heroes in this community, to me personally and to young people who are hopeless. Since that time that we were together just a few weeks ago, and I've driven around and seen people living in tents and freezing in the middle of the night, I've thought a lot about you and what you told me that day, and I've wondered how many of those people are former foster youth, how many of our hopeless and homeless people walking around are former foster youth. It has really given me another layer of understanding and a desire to really connect up with you and help these young people early in life get stable and understand that there are people in this community who love them and care for them. So thank you so very much. I don't know if my colleagues have questions. Mick, I know you were talked about quite a bit there, and they love you, I'll tell you.
Well, I love them, and I love what they do, and I love what they stand for. And Tom Corson is my hero in Kern County and all his team. Thank you very much. And my new employee is doing fabulous.
Great, great, thank you.
Way to go, Mick. Jamie, thank you. And as we improve and increase our partnership, I'm really excited about what we're going to do together. Thank you for what you do. And please know we're here as a resource for you, and we want to see what you do grow exponentially. And so we stand with you in your work.
Well, we appreciate that, and it would not be, the way that these agencies have come together to do innovative approaches, new approaches to serving a target population that can be difficult is so impressive, and I'm just fortunate to work beside them.
Thank you. What a good human being. Thank you. We are going to move now to public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the board on any matter not on today's agenda, but under the jurisdiction of the Board of Supervisors. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes. Please state and spell your full name before making your presentation. Thank you.
Well, good morning. Bill Walker, your Kern Behavioral Health and Recovery Services Director, and I have Lamar Bendinsky, formerly Lamar Curley, who's the Cal Mesa consultant, formerly our Deputy Director. And we have Mitchell Patel, our new Public Information Officer. And today, I'm just excited to present to you the Peers Guide to Behavioral Health Apps. You have a copy of it at your desk, and I think Mitchell's going to put it up on the overhead. Most modern societies have smartphones and utilize apps these days, including consumers of mental health and substance abuse services. Utilizing MHSA innovation dollars, coordinating with Cal Mesa, current BHRS and our IT department, with Lamar's help, worked with a dedicated group of consumers to develop the product you have before you. It is completely consumer and family member driven. The cover has a QR. I had to figure out what those are, which are those funny little boxes that if you have a smartphone, you can read it, and it will give you this edition on your phone. If you look on the inside of the cover, you'll see there's another QR at the bottom, so that this is the second edition. As we refresh these biannually, people will be able to get to the archived versions. If you look at the next page, you see the table of contents, and you see the categories of the apps. And if you go through the rest of the document, you'll see each app is explained. And again, these are all consumer-driven and consumer-decided. And on the back, and this is very important, you have our crisis line and information of how to get a hold of us. So how does this impact Kern? Well, it engages consumers, those involved in the development of it, that skyrocketed their self-esteem to be involved in this project. And we're using it to engage those that are hard to engage with something that actually was chosen by consumers. It provides information on how to reach us. People, we get it out there all the time, but usually when they need us, they don't have the number, and the number is right there on this brochure. And Kern BHRS will be providing these guides to other departments in English and in Spanish, public access points in all across the county. And this is going to impact the state because we have gifted this to other counties so that they can put their county's information on it and use it at their county level. Thank you for the opportunity to just give you a quick rundown on one of the small projects that we're current with Kern BHRS. Be happy if there's any questions or comments you'd like to ask. Thank you.
Impressive within the 2 minutes. Well, thank you. That is very gracious. Thank you. And thank you for this opportunity for the public to link in a new way. I think that's so critical. Colleagues, any questions? Okay. Thank you so very much for your presentation. Keep up the good work. And
You're welcome.
Mitchell.
And I do want to say the Dream Center is awesome.
Yes, it is.
As a side note, one of my sons, when he was trying to figure out what he wanted to do with his life when he was about 20 years old, I went to Tom and asked if he could volunteer at the Dream Center. And he volunteered there for months. I thought it would be maybe a few weeks, but he volunteered part-time for months, and it really helped solidify. And he came home one day and he said, you know, I see how if no one like a family is really taking care of you, how easy it is to slip off the deep end. And it changed his life, and he's now almost 30 and has had a very successful career working in behavioral health. But I really credit Tom Corson, Jamie Stewart, and the Dream Center for kind of giving him he didn't need their services directly, but he needed to see what it's like and what people need. So hats off to the Dream Center.
Oh, marvelous. Thank you.
Nice to see you again, Lamar.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair,
Good morning.
Supervisors, name's Terry Maxwell. I'm a resident here in Bakersfield in Kern County. I have a radio program, and an issue came to my attention through some phone calls that I'd received, and this has been over the course of the last couple of months. There is a postcard going out to some of my listeners, and it comes from the Auditor Controller Kern County Elections Division. It informs them that they, unless they re-register by a certain time, they will not be able to vote for the presidential election and the primaries. Many of these people, and actually all of these people have told me they recently went down to the DMV and got a new ID or got a new driver's license, and at no time were they asked anything about their preference or whether they're registered to vote or not. But subsequent to that, their registration as a Republican has been deleted. I think that this might be an opportunity, since this postcard is coming out from one of your divisions, that you look into this. This is a concern. People feel there might be some fraud going on in the DMV in regard to the most important thing that we all have, which is our right to vote. I also would ask that the Board of Supervisors put a request in with the Kern County Grand Jury to investigate this. If there is some fraud going on, I think that they have the materials and the tools that are evidently necessary to go in and find out what the DMV is actually doing. This exposure could possibly be done in other communities, because I understand that this is going on throughout the state. And I'm not talking about one or two people that have told me about this. Yesterday, when we talked about this on my program, I had no less than 10 emails and texts showing me this postcard that people had received. It should be a big concern. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Terry, thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you for your
Madam Chair, could I address
bringing
that for
this
just a
matter
second?
to our attention.
Sure.
Supervisor Mackert?
Somebody showed me one of these as well. The explanation I received, now I will confirm to make sure, but the explanation I received is that it's my understanding there is no Republican primary. So you can't register as a Republican to vote in the Democratic
Can I
primary.
read it to you? Because it says, let me put glasses on first. To vote in the presidential primary for Republican, Green, or Peace Party, Freedom parties, you must re-register to vote with that party before February 18th, 2020.
And then there's no Republican box underneath that, right?
The box, I do not see one.
Yeah.
But there's no box under what they tell the Democrats to do also.
We'll inquire to make sure, but that was my understanding, but we'll confirm to make sure of that.
Okay, I'm concerned that people might have been unregistered when they've been registered for 20 years as a Republican.
Yeah, I'd heard of the same thing. I just renewed my license to get whatever the new, information license is in
You got to have
December.
the bear on it instead of the star.
Right, and all the little things that are on there that weren't there before. So I meticulously paid attention when I renewed my license, and I am a registered Republican, and I was offered that opportunity during the process by which I filled out all the paperwork. So my concern was alleviated when I went through the process myself. But I see, Madam Chair, that Ms. Bedard is here. Maybe she can give us some information, and we can cure this on the spot.
Well,
And I would point out that Mr. Maggott's probably smarter than the average bear. Most people go in to just get their driver's license done.
Believe me, opinions vary on that. So.
Well, we can take a poll if you want. I'll make that poll of the week next week.
Okay, that's quite all
Thank
right,
you.
Terry. Thank you. Mary, would you come forward, please, and provide some insight into this clearly confusing matter?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chairman, members of the board. What I would say is that if anyone has any concerns about this, that they do contact our office. What we have heard from the Secretary of State's office and from other counties is that when some of these concerns have been raised, it turns out as you go back through and look and see how people filled out, whether it was DMV or just re-registering, it does go back to how they registered. There was some confusion, I think, and that was in the papers back in 2018 with the DMV, mostly that the forms were not necessarily that user-friendly. That website has been changed so that it is much clearer now how you can opt out from re-registering if you don't intend to. But we do ask that if anyone is concerned, that they do contact our office, and that we will look into it and provide them with an answer.
That is so helpful. Thank you very much. And I'm sure Terry has some questions for you. Terry, you guys can connect now in the foyer or in here and get some clarification. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. And of course, Mary, thank you.
Can I follow up with one question
Please.
for her? Ms. Bedard, I saw a registration card by someone who was, I think they were declined to state in their original registration. They just received a card, and it gives them options of what to register for, and it lists Democrat and several others. Republican is not on there. Can you give us some explanation as to why that's that way?
Okay, so the cards that we recently sent out were to people who are registered, or not registered with a political party. They are either they registered as declined to state or what's now called no party preference. So what the purpose of the cards was not saying they weren't registered. Obviously, they were registered, or we wouldn't have been able to mail them the cards. What the cards, they were doing was certain parties allow have what is called an open primary. That is the party's decision, and that includes the Democratic Party, the American Independent Party, and the Libertarian Party. Those are all open primaries. That's the decision of the primary of the party. The other parties have closed primaries, so you have to be registered with those parties in order to vote in their primary. So the purpose of the card was to let people who are not registered with a political party, to let them know that if they want to vote in the presidential primary, the parties that will allow them to vote in their primary were the three that were listed on the cards. So that was the purpose. They can either get a nonpartisan ballot, which will not have the presidential race on it, or they can ask for a ballot for one of the parties that will allow them to vote in their presidential primary. So that was the purpose of the card. That is why the card only had the three parties. Those are the parties with open primaries.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. There is a bit of confusion in the community, so it'd be good to get that out, the word out somehow. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor. Thank you so much, Mary. And Terry, the expert, is here, so help assuage some of those concerns. Any other members of the public that would like to weigh in on matters not on the agenda today? Okay, I'll ask my colleagues if you have any board member announcements or reports. On their own initiative, board members may make an announcement or report on their own activities. Okay, moving right along, we will go to item 14 under the County Administrative Office. It is a proposed agreement with Community Action Partnership of Kern, also known as CAPK, to operate Kern County's Low Barrier Navigation Center from January 14, 2020 through January 13, 2023 in an amount not to exceed $6.196416 and request to appropriate unanticipated revenue from the California Department of Housing and Community Development. Mr. Alsop, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the board, Ms. Ruiz from my office will be handling this item this morning.
Thank you.
Good morning. So really quickly, we again wanted to provide another update on the construction side of things. If you look at your screen, you'll see that last time we were waiting to pour concrete for foundation. You can see here in the picture that the foundation has been poured. This is the beginning of the sprung structures kind of coming in, being set in their place. Here you can see the first part of the frame going up. And we'll just kind of roll through those. And so here is the first structure up. This is the admin services building. So it's up completely. This picture was taken on Friday. And then the housing structure went up later that same day. And then this picture was taken yesterday morning. So both structures are up completely, and they'll kind of do, hopefully we'll be covering the building, I think by the end of the week is what we're looking at. But we're on target. We're moving very quickly, and it's getting very exciting. So back to the item. On December 17th, your board approved the selection of CAPK as the sole source operator of the Low Barrier Navigation Center. The item before you is the proposed agreement with CAPK. The agreement is for a 3-year term and encompasses all the necessary components for a successful low barrier navigation center. The agreement provides the staffing and management to operate an 150-bed facility that includes the appropriate policies and procedures, meals, pet care, security, property storage, and many wraparound services. At full capacity, the annual cost is $2,054,472. However, the Navigation Center will initially open with 50 beds. The agreement is funded by SB2 funds under the Permanent Local Housing Allocation Program, which is an ongoing and dedicated funding source. The agreement has been reviewed and approved by council. Therefore, it's recommended that your board approve the proposed agreement with Community Action Partnership of Kern to operate Kern County's Low Barrier Navigation Center from January 14th, 2020 through January 13th, 2023, in an amount not to exceed $6,163,416, and authorize the chairman to sign and the auditor-controller to process the specified budgetary adjustments and accounting transactions. And I'm available for any questions.
Amanda, hats off to you. We are moving at warp speed, in my opinion, and doing so in a united fashion in a way that is just getting the attention of folks all around the state, and of course, I think so pleasing to so many taxpayers in Kern County who want to see action now. So thank you, Ryan. Your team is just phenomenal. And I really want to say thank you, heartfelt thank you to Jeff Hill, who has really prioritized local hire and in giving folks from our MLK Community Initiative an opportunity to compete and work hard and forge a new pathway, and I am so grateful to Jeff for that, so thank you. Are there members of the public who would like to weigh in on this item? Okay, colleagues? Well, thank you for the update, Amanda. Ryan, do you need to add any? Oh, Mike, I didn't see you, forgive me. Supervisor Maggard.
Thank you. I want to thank my colleagues at CAPK for their willingness to step into the breach and help us get this done. I happen to serve on the board of CAPK. I don't have a financial interest in their operations, so there's no conflict of interest, but I am honored to be able to work with you guys, and I look forward to watching your leadership and your talent exhibited as you run this operation for us. So thank you very much. With that, I'd be happy to make a motion to approve.
Well said, Supervisor. In a moment, Supervisor Couch?
I'll second that, but could you clarify a little bit for the public? I'm sure people are going to ask. You hear talk about $1.7 million funding. This is a $6 million contract. Can you, in general, comment on that? The differences in the amounts that you hear, the people hear.
So our initial estimated allocation 1.7, however, based on the state's estimates, it looks like it's trending higher than that. So we anticipate it'll be able to fully cover the cost. I think that's why you're seeing that difference. And the $6 million is for the total 3-year term.
Still not working, Kathy. There you go. Thank you for that.
So we have a motion and a second. Without further discussion, please cast your vote.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you so much. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Moving right along to item 15, it's a request to waive the competitive bidding process for contracts related to 2020 census outreach efforts pursuant to Public Contract Code, Section 19150, and proposed agreements from January 14, 2020 through September 30, 2020 with various agencies. Mr. Alsop?
Yeah, Madam Chair, again, members of the board, thank you. Mr. Thomas Brown from my office will handle this item.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. The item before you contains proposed contracts to perform 2020 census education and outreach efforts throughout Kern County. Adoption of the proposed agreements will enable the county to meet the criteria set out in our strategic plan and implementation plan submitted to the State Complete Count Office. As a condition of receiving roughly $850,000 in funding for our local Complete Count Committee, or CCC, outreach efforts, the County Administrative Office, in collaboration with a diverse group of local community-based organizations, have meticulously worked through the strategic and implementation plan phases. The proposed contracts before your board are the culmination of that work. For some background, the state and local CCC mission is to implement a communication and outreach strategy that focuses on both geographic areas and demographic populations who are least likely to respond to the 2020 census. These areas and populations are commonly referred to as hard to count, or HTC. The census only comes around once every 10 years. The data collected is vitally important because it determines the number of seats each state has in the U.S. House of Representatives and is used to distribute billions of dollars in federal funds to local communities. The Kern Complete Count Committee's outreach efforts consist of the following. 1, outreach events. These events are where community-based organizations who serve as trusted messengers will coordinate efforts to host and attend community events to educate and encourage HTC populations to participate in the upcoming census. 2 are census action kiosks. The 2020 census will rely heavily on electronic submittals for the first time in the history of the survey. However, not all households in Kern County have reliable broadband access. Beginning March 2020, kiosks will be located at over 50 locations around the county for HTC populations to fill out their questionnaires in trusted spaces, including library branches and community-based organization facilities. The third is canvassing. Some community-based organizations will also serve as trusted messengers by canvassing neighborhoods with high HTC populations, going door to door to educate residents on the census process and the location of their nearest kiosk. And the fourth is a localized media campaign. The Kern CCC is working with the state and regional partners to develop a localized media campaign, which includes messaging disseminated through print media, digital media, radio, television, billboards, and bus wraps about the importance of completing the upcoming census. The ultimate goal of the combined federal, state, and local efforts are to ensure that hard-to-count communities and populations in Kern are accurately counted in the 2020 census, thereby achieving the highest response rate possible. The funding that Kern County has received from the State Complete Count Office is unique in that it was a one-time state general fund allocation, and counties were asked to serve as a pass-through agency to distribute funds to local stakeholders. In an effort to make the distribution of these state funds as streamlined as possible, the state of California enabled Section 19150 of the Public Contracts Code, which states that any contract related to the 2020 U.S. Census and entered into by the Government Operations Agency or the Office of Planning and Research is exempt from Part 2 of the PCC, which relates to typical contracting requirements for state agencies. County Council determined that the PCC Section 19150 exemption applies to the proposed agreements before your board as an extension of the contract executed between the Government Operations Agency and Kern County for census outreach funding. Therefore, staff is requesting that your board waive the county's competitive bidding process for the agreements related to our local census outreach efforts. Despite this waiver request, staff has continued working with the state and council to ensure each organization's contract includes appropriate performance measures related to proposed work and language that will protect the county throughout the census outreach efforts. Since the state did not provide guidance on performance metrics, staff will hold organizations accountable by attaching their tailored implementation plan activities to their individual agreements. The county's implementation plan includes detailed information on outreach activities broken down by potential dates, census tracts, and organizations. Staff collected this detailed information from organizations requesting funds and compiled all information to develop the countywide plan to submit to the state. Staff also chose to conduct an outreach gap analysis after organizations submitted their detailed implementation plans. To have a full understanding of outreach occurring in Kern County, staff worked with our state and regional partners to assess census tract coverage and worked with our local partners to provide coverage to as many areas of the county as possible. The county will require organizations to submit outreach report forms, which are also required by the state, in order to provide evidence that they have completed their outreach work and are eligible to receive reimbursement for completed activities. Attachment A in your board packet depicts 2 maps. One map illustrates the hardest to count census tracts, while the second map illustrates outreach activity proposed by Kern CCC partners throughout the county. Although not all census tracts are highlighted, it is important to note that outreach activity occurring in one census tract is likely to attract and impact residents from neighboring census tracts. With the U.S. Census Bureau's self-response period beginning in mid-March 2020, organizations requesting funds will primarily conduct outreach during the months of January through April 2020. As mentioned, the county was responsible for submitting an implementation plan to the state on October 30th. That plan was not approved until early December 2019. The state's lengthy review and approval process, along with the holiday recess, slightly delayed staff's ability to bring these agreements before your board as quickly as we would have preferred. But we are still on track with providing outreach that coincides with the U.S. Census Bureau's self-response period. Upon approval of the proposed agreements before your board today, approximately 80% of state funds allotted to Kern for census outreach efforts will be appropriated. Attachment B in your packet includes 2 tables related to funding allocations. Table 1 illustrates the proposed contract amounts for a total of $581,030. Table 2 displays a summary of current revenue and expenditures. The remaining funds of $180,815 will be used to address unanticipated outreach challenges that will require resources at any given time during the Kern CCC's outreach and media efforts. Staff will continue to work with the state, regional partners, local community stakeholders, and your board to coordinate and expand on census outreach efforts as needed through April 2020. This concludes staff's prepared comments. The recommended action is for your board to approve the proposed contracts and waive the competitive bidding process per Public Contract Code Section 19150. With that, we're available for any questions you may have.
Thank you for an excellent presentation, Thomas. I appreciate that. Are there members of the public who would like to weigh in on this matter? If so, now is the time to do so. We want every single dollar that is owed to us in Kern County, and we will utilize it in the most creative ways, as that's what we do.
Madam Chair.
Sir, your name?
Madam Chair and Supervisors, my name is Terry Maxwell. I have some concerns about this in the way that it was all put together. I understand that the committee, the Kern Complete Count Committee, was made up of certain members, which I'm not aware of who exactly they are. I have not been able to see. But I have heard that some of the people who are on that committee are also people who are getting some of this grant money. I would question their ability to be unbiased in the way that they go about getting this information. Matter of fact, I have something that I'd like each of you to take a look at. I don't want this process to be fraught with people getting the idea that people walking out representing the government to try and do a census also represent another organization. That's very confusing to the people whose count you're trying to get. And I would ask that the board look at the different people who are on this committee and certainly restrict those people because of a conflict of interest from being given the responsibility for doing this count. There's nothing that would prevent them from taking the information that they garner and using it for other purposes. And I think that's wrong. I definitely think that's wrong. I think there are other organizations that could be doing it. There's faith-based organizations that could possibly be doing this in place of some of the organizations that might have been able to be on the committee and at the same time bid on some of this stuff. I think there's also the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce would be a good choice. I noticed that one of the groups doing it is the Black Chamber of Commerce, and I think that's a great choice. They are a nonpartisan group. I've worked with them before, and I think that the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is a great group that is nonpartisan. I've worked with them before. But I look at some of the people who are being awarded this, and I really question whether this is a good decision for the board to go forward with this. And I would ask that you reconsider some of the people who are getting this money.
Terry, do you have
Yeah.
evidence of partisan activity or something outside of suspicion
I
or
watch the
concern?
TV, and I've had dealings with some of these organizations. You know, I believe that they are partisan. I think that if you were to go out of this room and go onto the street and talk to people who are politically connected, and you mention some of these names, they would say yes, definitely, that they are partisan in the way that they respond to things.
Okay, I'm going to ask again. Do you have evidence of partisan activity by any of these groups that you would like to present this board?
I just presented you with something that I think is questionable in the way that that information is being presented and might be presented. But do I have evidence beyond that? No.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you, Terry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other members of the public that would like to weigh in? Okay. Thomas, I am excited that my good friend Alex Padilla, who's Secretary of State, is very invested in Kern County's count and will be coming into town in April to do a big kickoff. And we want to do really a big focused effort into the MLK region that we're working on. That's a hard to count community. And would certainly want to partner with Kern County in making sure that the message of everybody counts and that we need this money really gets effectively communicated. So let's work together on that process. He wants to come in around April and really help us get the word out in hard-to-count communities. So I look forward to partnering with you on that matter. Any other input from the community or the public? Okay, colleagues? Okay, Ryan? Ryan Alsop, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that, members of the board. This is an important endeavor that we undertake, but we are very happy it's only every 10 years. It's a heck of a lot of work, and I want to thank Mr. Brown, who and I believe Carmina on our staff, who handled all of this effort on their own. It's a lot of work. I wanted to give Mr. Brown an opportunity to maybe address a couple of the issues that were brought forward, just so that everybody understands the process, how we undertook this process, who's involved, what this is at the end of the day, the program. If you could, Mr. Brown.
Madam Chair, members of the board. So this, like Ryan said, this process comes along once every 10 years. This was a very unique situation because the state of California has never in the history devoted this much general fund dollars to census outreach activities. So they had an idea of what they wanted to do. They asked counties to be basically the fiscal agent to distribute those funds. But there was no real playbook or game plan in place. It was a very general concept. So we've been working at this for well over a year. We've reached out to as many community-based organizations and stakeholders and partners throughout Kern County as we possibly could. In fact, the Hispanic Chamber was invited to attend our meetings. They did not. These folks are very busy with their day-to-day lives and the businesses and organizations that they run. And so we were it's with a great debt of gratitude to them for coming to this community or this committee and spending as much time as they have on this process. I know there's been a lot of frustration through the process because, again, we didn't get a lot of direction from the state on how these dollars should be allocated. We were basically left to our own devices and our own local procurement policies and procedures. However, because this is unique funding and it is one time and it is passed through, the process that we undertook was we invited as many folks as we could to the table. We asked those who were at the table to continue to reach out to folks in their communities and similar organizations to do similar work. And the group that we got, we told them what the dollar amounts were and asked them to provide a budget to us so that we can go through it. Since we didn't have a playbook, we basically mimicked the county's budgeting process. We asked all people who wanted to receive funding to submit a proposal to us meaning the county staff. Carmina and I reviewed that data. We went through basically rounds like we do at the county budget process. We made sure things passed the smell test. We made sure that if they were going to pay folks to do canvassing work, that hourly rate was a reasonable and justifiable rate. In addition to that, we brought these contracts back before the entire Complete Count Committee, which is made up of a group of experts who do this on a day-to-day basis, this type of work. And the organization that requested funding had to present to the entire group. They were scrutinized. This was vetted as well as we possibly could, given the circumstances. And so we narrowed the dollar amounts down. We were as frugal as we possibly could be because we were under the assumption that these were the only dollars we were going to get and we wanted to allocate them as best as we could. And so through that process, these are the contracts that came before you, are coming to your board for approval. The dollar amounts vary. I have never seen this flyer that was just handed out by the member of the public. The Dolores Huerta Foundation is doing some canvassing work throughout the entire county. They are experts in that field, and we are lucky to have their expertise, in my opinion, to be able to go out and to do this work on behalf of the entire county, make sure to get the word out and that folks are aware of the census and that they fill out the questionnaire. I know Mr. Huerta is running for Board of Supervisors, but I have not seen, in my experience with this committee, any commingling of those two issues.
Neither have I.
This is brand new information to me, and as far as I'm concerned, the group as a whole has fully vetted these agreements, and ultimately it's your board's decision to approve them or not approve them. So if your board is uncomfortable with anything that's presented here, you can say, no, we will not approve this.
Well, thank you for your presentation.
Hopefully that helps answer the question.
Thank you so much. I was really impressed with Jeff Flores of Supervisor Maggard's office, who Saturday helped engage in a very healthy presentation to the African American Network around census and how important these counting every single person here is because of the dollar amounts associated. $2,000 a person over 10 years, $20,000 an individual. That's real money that we need here in Kern, and the more bodies we have on the ground expressing that. And Jeff did an excellent job. It was a very nonpartisan presentation, and there's just so much good cohesion in the community around making sure everybody gets counted. I've been very impressed, and I've not seen any partisan activity whatsoever.
And if I could add to that comment, Madam Chair, so Jeff Flores from Supervisor Maggard's office actually worked with us through that budgeting process as well. Once we got all of our data compiled, we ran over every line item with Jeff and Mr. Maggard's staff. So again, we were trying to be as transparent and open in the process as we possibly could. So.
Appreciate that. Thank you for your presentation. Any members of the public who want to continue weighing in on this? Oh, if so, please come down. Now's the time to let us know how you feel and give us your perspective. Please state your name for the record.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nick Hill. I'm the president and CEO of the Kern County Black Chamber of Commerce. Number one, I want to thank Thomas and Carmina. They've been doing a great job through this effort. But in the selection process, we were told that when the canvassing opportunities came along, that no one in the African American community wanted to take on that effort. Well, I'm SBE certified, I'm DBE certified with the federal government and under consulting and management. We were never given the opportunity to do that. So we don't know if RFPs came down, RFQs or RFI. I don't know how the process went on because, like I said, we never heard anything about it. So I was just thinking that in the next 10 years when it comes up, we will be given, some type of consideration for canvassing for our African American community, because right now, as far as the African American community, with the canvassing, it's an afterthought. And the reason why I say it's an afterthought is because right now, we are just now getting African Americans hired to do canvassing in predominantly African American areas and all the pockets and things like that. So I have no problem with the organizations that are doing it right now, because they did reach out to me after I voiced some concern about it. They did reach out to me and they gave me their hiring requirements, meaning Faith in the Valley and Dolores Werther Foundation. They did reach out and give me their hiring requirements and told me that they would hire some African Americans. But like I said, this was like an afterthought after, a concern was raised about it.
Nick, I thought Dee Slade was in charge of some of these dollars and in getting people recruited to do African American outreach. Am I wrong about that? My staff has been meeting with her.
Yes,
and
but not
I'm confused.
canvassing. So we did not have any African American canvassers for the African American communities. So that's the focus here. And like I said, when the RFPs, RFQs, and RFIs came out, we were not in the game. And I understand Thomas said he did reach out to the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, but evidently they did not reach out to the Black Chamber of Commerce, So, but with that being said, like I said, that may be an oversight, and I'll just leave it at that at this point. But like I said, Thomas and Carmina, they've been working diligently on this, so it's through no fault of their own or anything else like that. But I just wanted to bring that out, and hopefully in the next 10 years when we start working on the next census, because our main concern is getting a complete count of the African American community. And so, if we don't have African American canvassers to do that, I don't see exactly how that could be effectively achieved. So with that being said, thank you so much for allowing me the time.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Mick?
can I clarify? I want to know what you said. So let me put it in my words, and you tell me if I'm right or not.
Okay.
The way you found out about this process is that you inquired, asked somebody, and once you went out and asked somebody, then you learned about the process.
No. I was actually brought in by Dee Slade of the African American Network of Kern County in June. And when I did come in, I addressed the white elephant in the room. So, and that was because of the lack of inclusion.
Okay, Mr. Hill, inclusion is the whole focus of this whole deal, and you're saying that you appreciate all the work everybody's doing, and I know personally from firsthand exposure that Thomas and his team have been outstanding in
Yes,
what they're
they
doing.
have. Yes, they have.
But you're...
And beyond that, Carmita personally helped me as far as completing the census track with the implementation plan, because I did the implementation plan, and she took time to personally help me with that. So they've done above and beyond, you know,
Right.
what they normally have to do.
I don't doubt that at all. That is not what is my question is about inclusion.
Yes.
Making sure that everybody is counted fairly.
Correct.
Are you confident of that or not?
No.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the public? Any questions or concerns from this board? If not, I'll entertain a motion to move forward. Oh, I'm sorry, Thomas Brown. Did you want to respond to those concerns raised?
Madam Chair, so Dee Slade was the primary lead at the table from very early on, representing the African American community. She put us in contact with 7 pastors in the African American faith-based community, and through this whole process, there was no RFI, RFQ. I don't know what Mr. Hill is referring to. The crux of it is that there were these types of outreach efforts that we are going to be undertaking as a complete count committee, and those outreach efforts, the kiosks, canvassing, and then the media campaign. Most organizations don't have the administrative capacity or the staffing to do canvassing. That's a very niche outreach effort. Every member of the community had an opportunity to propose a budget to do canvassing. Whether they did or they didn't was up to them. So we hear Nick's concerns. I've been meeting with Nick and Dee on a regular basis for the last 2 months regarding this. We met with Regina Wilson from the State Complete Count office as well regarding this issue. I think part of the frustration was that because it was iterative and we were, as a complete count committee, local complete count committee, trying to move forward with our outreach endeavors, we had to keep stopping and then going back because the state would come in after the fact and give us guidance on how we should be proceeding. So a lot of these organizations are around the table and they feel like they're spinning their wheels because the state keeps hampering our efforts to move forward. Every time we're ready to move forward, the state says, hold on, we need to really decide how we want to do this. And we have to take a step back. And so I think a part of the frustration is that, and Nick, to his credit, came to the CCC a little bit later in the game, which is fine. We can still take organizations as of right now. We have $180,000 at our disposal for contingency. So if there's an African American group that wants to do canvassing, by all means, we will take that proposal. We will vet it like we did the others, and we're happy to award funding so that they can have that. But in the interim, the 2 organizations, Dolores Huerta Foundation and also Faith in the Valley, who are going to be doing canvassing throughout Kern, we met with Nick and Dee, and they offered the ability. They said, if you have folks in your communities, predominantly African American communities and neighborhoods, who are interested in signing up to be paid canvassers, so that the folks who are going into those neighborhoods look like the folks in those neighborhoods. They're trusted messengers. They have been more than willing to allow them to receive those candidates and to consider them for hire for canvassing in those specific communities. That was just one way to supplement it. In addition to that, like I said, we have funding available. So if there are other organizations in the African American community who want to step up and do canvassing, they are welcome to do that. They're using the word exclusion is misleading in my opinion. And I think, again, we've done this as transparently as possible. We've invited as many stakeholders to the table as possible, and we've done everything to the best of our ability to include everyone from all walks of life throughout Kern County. So
Thank you for clarifying that they've had the opportunity to compete for those dollars and can continue to moving forward. That is really helpful. Thank you for your thorough presentation and response to these community concerns. Not seeing any other folks chimed in. Oh, please come down.
Madam Chair and the supervisors, I'm going to talk as I walk. Kudos to the county staff that
Your name, ma'am, for the
My name
record.
is Dee Slade. I represent the African American Network of Kern County. I am the executive director, and yes, from 2018 all the way 2019, I have been a participant on your Kern County 2020 Complete Count Committee. There is no problem. It's time to go to work, as far as I'm concerned. Everyone within this county, the city of Bakersfield outlying areas need to be counted. Everyone benefit from the medical services, first responder services, education, everything. Homeless, LBGT, incarcerated, you name it. Our community has it. Meth, you name it. Trafficking, all of that. So what I'm saying is that, yes, I did bring our faith base. I want to clarify my vision, and I did speak to Thomas about it. Can I bring the faith base in? Because for me and for other minorities, they have that 6 days or 7 days a week audience. Within their parishioners, they have accountants, they may have legal attorneys, they may have medical, they may have community-based representatives that attend their services. So my thoughts were bring in, since I was the chair of the community-based part of the subcommittee, I would bring in faith-based. I did. Also, I brought in 4 other organizations. That was the Kern County Black Chamber, All of Us, None of Us. I also started tapping into your sororities and fraternities. They represent people that look like me. And that is why I think Nick has a problem, because he was not notified early enough. However, March 31st to April 7th, we had to turn in our statement of work, our budget, proposed budget, also our proposed timeline, and a list of our projected or proposed stakeholders. I did turn in. I did notice we left out the Asian community. So I went to the Bakersfield Chinese Women's Association and did a short presentation why they needed to have a representative at that table. And they said, Mom D, we're happy you came. We're happy you're giving us this information, and would you come back and give us more? The number 2 questions that they asked me was, we have blended families, and Dee Slade has blended families. How do we on that form list our blended family? I'm Chinese, I may have a Malaysian. I'm African American, it's Ethiopian, or I may have Portuguese. So how do we, I said on the form that I've received from the Bureau, you can put down your blended family. The only thing they want you to do is count everyone on that particular date that's at your location. If they're visiting from Texas and they're there, they have to be counted, Bakersfield, at that location. And so this is why I think there was a little confusion, because you didn't see the representation of our community. There are over 70-some entities here that represent cultures, whether it's Irish, Scottish, Portuguese, Armenian, whether it's the Sikh, Punjabi, whether it's African, Cambodian, Chinese, we're all here. And what I was looking for was those individuals at the invitation of Dee Slade or Mr. Thomas's team to sit there at the table. So I think that's where the little confusion comes. But they did an excellent job, the 2 of them. They did the best they could. The state did not give them the information, I know that for a fact, as they needed, because Kern County's different. This is what I've been saying to the state. We're totally different from Fresno. We're not Fresno. This is Bakersfield. This is Kern County. So thank you, Thomas and Carmina, and the entire Alejandra, Cole staff, all of them, for letting me voice my concerns, not personal, just for my community. I'm proud of my community, and I know everyone else is. Thank you.
Thank you. Strikingly eloquent. Thank you, Dee. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing and return to my colleagues for action or movement of any sort. Supervisor Gleason.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thomas, you've done a great job. I sincerely mean that, and I think this is probably one of the most critical functions we do, is taking a census. Its implications for Kern County for the next millennia will be significantly impacted to make sure that we do this right, and that's why my team has worked so closely with you and offered critiques and approvals and all this kind of stuff, and you have been open, you've been transparent, and you're doing everything you can within your purview to make sure we do a fair job. So whatever I say, I just want to compliment you on taking this on. Trust me, this is a difficult thing. Can you talk to me a little bit about East Kern and how we are getting those hard-to-count people out in East Kern?
Absolutely. So we have been specifically focusing on East Kern because we know that some of those communities are the toughest, not because of necessarily the demographics, but because of the overall, bear with me one moment, I apologize. Because of the overall isolation of those communities, essentially. So what we have done specifically for East Kern, and Ms. Supervisor Gleason, I can give you a quick rundown on the things that we have done specifically for your district, because I know we've discussed this before.
Hurry up and take your time.
So I'm not gonna rely on this. What we've basically done is we've engaged as many stakeholders as we can in East Kern, nonprofits, faith-based organizations, the school districts, any way, shape, or form, any type of civic organization that we can engage to make sure that there's canvassing, kiosks. Kiosks is going to be the primary mode of outreach in East Kern. We've teamed with the Kern County Library, and they are committed to hosting kiosks in every single one of their library branches. In addition to that, they are disseminating information with the bookmobiles out in East Kern. We are also relying on school districts in the Indian Wells Valley area and also in Kern River Valley. So essentially, what we're trying to do is put information out that says the census is important through as many stakeholders as we can, and then have the kiosks available so that folks are empowered to go out and actually participate and actually take some action and fill out the census. If you want a line item by census tract for your specific area, I'm more than happy to provide that for you. The spreadsheet is literally thousands of lines long, so I'm sorry I can't give you more detail than that. But specifically for East Kern, I would be happy to provide specific details for you.
Would you say, in a general characterization, I know you don't have the data in front of you, but the problem you're having is getting people to participate? The issue all this is all about is that some groups are willing to participate and some are not.
That's correct.
And the overarching perspective then is you look at some of these groups and you come up with stuff like this, with Mr. Maxwell brought in, which has the appearance of being not problematic, but may not be problematic at all. But it just has the appearance of it, and that may be the issue that we're having, is that people aren't participating. So if you were to characterize the participation of people in East Kern, well, how would you describe it, just in general terms?
Well,
robust?
I can speak firsthand. I live in East Kern County. I've lived in East Kern County my entire life.
Whereabouts?
In Tehachapi.
Oh, too bad. District 2.
District 2. So it's a different element out there. People like their privacy. They like to be away from other people. That's speaking personally. But so when you have the government coming in and saying, we want you to fill us out because we want information about you, there's already some hesitancy there, just because of the nature of folks who live in East Kern. And again, I'm speaking personally, but I think it's, in general terms, that's a fair characterization of the region.
Mr. Brown, I'm sorry, keep going.
Go ahead.
One of the things you said was, we're going to get to those people, we're going to count them, and we're going to count them with people who have the same demographics as the people they're counting. How are we going to do that in Eastern Kern if the people aren't participating?
Unfortunately, we haven't come across many organizations that have canvassing or that type of grassroots function in East Kern, like a robust organization. They have lots of staffing, and that's why Dolores Huerta Foundation stepped up, because they said, we realize and recognize through our gap analysis there's a need out there in East Kern, and we're willing to provide folks to go out into those communities and actually do the canvassing. Now, their hiring process, I can't speak to it directly, but I'm under the impression that they're hiring folks who look like folks from those communities. I'm assuming they're reaching out to folks in East Kern to see if there's an interest there to actually be hired as a canvasser and do outreach in those communities. Because at the end of the day, you're going to have folks who are familiar with the areas and the terrain to be able to go out and do those events. So,
my last question, Mr. Brown, and I want to again end by complimenting you and your team on this, taking this on, because I know how challenging it is, and we've been talking for a long time about it. What's your timeline that you need decisions made and all that kind of stuff in order for funding to move?
So we are in the self-response period right now, or we're ramping up to that. The self-response period will begin in late March and run through April from the Federal Bureau's side of things. So right now what we're trying to do is to do the outreach and education portion January, February through early March. And then that way when March and April roll around, we roll over to the action phase, which says, we've educated as many people as we can, and now it's time to actually take the action and go to those kiosks. The kiosks will be operational in March 2020 and run through, I believe, early summer as well. So we're giving everyone every opportunity to be informed about the census and then have the means to go out and take some action and fill it out.
One more question. Yes. I know you're swimming upstream on this whole thing. What confidence level do you have that we're going to have an accurate count in East Kern?
Do you want a probability?
I know you can't give me anything but.
I think the probability is high that we will count as many people as we possibly can.
Thank you for saying nothing.
Thank you so much, Mick. Great questions about Eastern Kern. Those kiosks are really critical to give folks the ability and know how to stop in and be counted if we can convince them how important it is. And this is so big. And Thomas, you're doing such a phenomenal job. Get to see you, and your complexity today is quite striking. And you've done an excellent job addressing real concerns by real people who want to be included. And that's fair. And I'm happy to see that you have done that above and beyond. And it just means so much to so many people in this community. So thank you. Supervisor Maggard.
Thank you. At the beginning of this process, there was concern expressed that the process could be vulnerable to manipulation, and that some might be able to use the process for a self-serving end. Jeff Flores in my office is a very, very talented man, and he not only serves extraordinarily in the 3rd District, but he serves the entire county many, many times with his analysis and observations and insights. And Jeff and I talked about this at length, and he vetted very, very carefully this process to make sure that, one, conflicts of interest were not being served. Next, that all of the areas of Kern County were being reached out to as effectively as we could. Certainly I don't know, and Jeff doesn't know about the nuances of the Kern River Valley or many other corners and little, sometimes otherwise unnoticed portions of our county. But outreach was done, questions were asked. I'm very confident at the end of this process that it has been vetted as thoroughly as we could. The allocations at the end of this process are not the same as they were proposed to be or requested to be at the beginning. They are substantially different. And I think that's a credit to the process to make sure that it was done fairly. So I commend your efforts. I commend Jeff, who's been mentioned by a few people, for Jeff Flores for his great work here. I would urge, and I thank you, Thomas, and your crew for being open to doing this appropriately and tolerating, which is your duty to do, but you still tolerate it professionally, the many, many, many questions that were asked to make sure it was fair. And I'm confident that it is as fair as we can make it at this point. We must, at the end of the day, rely upon those vendors who will do this, providers who will do this, that they will do it fairly. And if they do not, we will note that going forward. I do think it's worthwhile to note Mr. Hill's concern that canvassers are hired from a very diverse group of applicants. So I hope we outreach effectively about that, because that will be an integral part of the success of the process. A great deal is at stake through this process, and I thought it was worthwhile to say that we looked very, very carefully into it, and I think it is as good as we can make it at this point. So thank you.
Supervisor, thank you. Is that a motion to move forward? Or would somebody care to make a motion at this point?
I'll make a comment.
Oh, Supervisor, I didn't see you plugged in, so.
I didn't. I apologize.
My apologies. Supervisor Couch.
You have done a good job, Mr. Brown, and I want to commend you on that. One of the things that was raised during this was the exact issue that Mr. Maxwell brought to our attention today. And I would note that isn't the first or only time that occurred. Now, that's hearsay because I did not witness it. But the people that told me this occurred, I would take their word to the bank. And I have lots of friends all over the county, lots of acquaintances, and these were unsolicited reports that I received of that. So, and again, I don't know, because nobody who witnessed this occur, they didn't run outside, they didn't run up to the person that dropped the literature on the door or hung it on the door and asked them, what's your name, who do you work for? They didn't do any of that. They just noticed both of these pieces of literature ended up on their doorstep at the same time from the same person. My question is, if that is true, and I believe it is, aren't those entities, specifically the nonprofits, which maybe all of them are, risking their nonprofit status?
Supervisor Couch to the chair. So I think it's important to point out that no organization has received funding yet from the allocation we received from the state.
Well, I was going to ask you that, but it's already begun.
Okay.
The work, I guess, has begun.
So if Dolores Huerta Foundation wants to disseminate this on
we keep talking about that particular entity. I don't know who it was. So you can, whoever you want to talk about is okay with me, but I want to make the point, I am not specifically naming any particular group.
You're absolutely correct.
Okay.
And I made the assumption based on this piece of paper that was presented to us this morning, so I apologize for that. As far as canvassing goes, let me just start there. We worked with council to include language in those agreements that says their canvassing outreach efforts are only to be related to the 2020 census and nothing else. If they violate that clause, they are in violation of that agreement, and we will not pay them. I don't know what else we can do.
Do you know who or which entities will be canvassing in which particular areas of the county?
Dolores Huerta Foundation will be throughout the county. Faith in the Valley will be throughout the county as well. We also have Visión y Compromiso, which is going to be focused mostly on metropolitan Bakersfield, predominantly Hispanic neighborhoods. And I believe those are the three primary, or the three organizations that will be doing canvassing throughout the county.
Well, I think there needs to be an admonition to those entities, a soft but firm admonition that is a serious matter for them. Forget about the integrity of the census, and forget about the integrity of the election or the campaigns. It's a matter for them to take very seriously, because those entities have work that they need to do, and jeopardizing their nonprofit status, anyone's nonprofit status, is a very important and serious issue for them. And people are at a heightened sense of awareness for the next 60 days or so, not even that, month and a half maybe, because of elections and campaigns. And so they should be aware that people are looking for that sort of thing. I'm going to abstain from this because of that very, apparently it's going on. I've seen this, but I'm not even using this as my basis. I don't know who's involved in campaigning or electioneering that is also involved in the census outreach, but it's apparently happening, and it's distressing, and it's unfortunate. Thank you.
Thomas, could you I appreciate your clarification. Nobody's actually been paid for any census work to date. Is that correct?
Actually, the only organization that has been paid is TDH and Associates. They're doing our GIS mapping. And so we did PPSA specifically with them because it falls within the dollar thresholds. I know these agreements, we wanted to bring them all under one item so that your board could consider everything all at the same time. But for the GIS component, we actually had to get the ball rolling on that because there was a lot of mapping that needed to be done for our implementation and strategic plan analysis. So.
Thank you for that clarification. Supervisor Scrivener.
Sorry, I haven't done that in a while. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Brown, you said that there are a few organizations that you listed, one or two, two or three, I should say, that are doing canvassing all over the county. My question is, will we be able to track which organizations are doing which precincts or census map areas, et cetera? So if we do see electioneering that's going on in tandem with what we're paying for, which is a census, we will know which organizations were in that area.
Supervisor Scrivener, through the chair, absolutely. So as part of their obligation to submit an invoice to us for reimbursement, they have to complete the state questionnaire form that basically details the event that they did, and that's tied directly to the census tract. So we can absolutely track that, and we will actually be mapping that and uploading it into the state system so that they're mapping it statewide.
Okay, because we don't know if this is a coordinated effort or if this was just, some other individual working on behalf of any entity or working directly with this campaign. But I think that all the organizations that are doing canvassing need to be put on notice that we are aware that this is occurring and it will not be accepted, and they will not be paid if we have evidence that they're doing that, and then we will be tracking who goes where when they're doing their work for us. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to clarify, based on what my colleague just said, I am not aware that it is happening. I've heard rumors and suspicions, but that is not evidence to me. So it is not my position that we are aware that it is happening. If it's happening, it's wrong and needs to be addressed immediately, and I have every faith that you will not reward that behavior. I agree with Supervisor Couch. We should give an admonition, reminders so people know these things are not to be done in tandem. And of course, to date, there could be no evidence of such thing since we haven't paid anybody to do any census work. But it would be good to clarify now, in case there's any confusion, an admonition that it will be very seriously addressed and that is a problem and it is wrong. So I have every faith that you can do that, Thomas, and I agree with Supervisor Couch that admonition should go out and we should make that as formal and as open as we can. Again, thank you, Thomas, for your work.
Good morning, Madam Chair. I realize the public comment period is over, but I do have some information to add on Mr. Thomas's comments.
Can you state your name, sir?
My name is Troy Hightower, and I represent TDH Associates. What Mr. Thomas explained, that we've been retained to do the maps, and part of that process is every activity that's done is located on a geographical correct map. And in addition to that, every activity, they're required to fill out an intensive form that says who they are, what the organization was, what areas that they had the activity in, some demographic information, and that all is filed on an online form through the system we developed so that it does record exactly where and who did what. And that form is part of the requirement to get paid by the organizations. So I just wanted to add that's something that's in the background that does provide and answer some of your questions about who did what. And we can report that online at any time. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Maggott, did you have a question for him?
Yes, Chair Perez. Mr. Hightower, You're a talented fellow with the GIS stuff, and I appreciate your level of expertise. Are you confident that the process and the documentation you've laid out would reveal to us if someone is manipulating or misusing these resources for political purposes opposed to just census gathering?
I am confident, Mr. Supervisor, as well as if they don't participate in the procedure that is provided, they won't get paid.
We're not going to pay them.
Right. And I will say that the state has a GIS system that we have replicated, and we've actually tested this to make sure that all of these components work.
So if there are concerns expressed, can we give those through the CEO's office to Mr. Hightower? What's the process by which, the path by which we make sure those things are investigated if we hear of abuses?
Well, I think it's important to point out, Supervisor Maggard through the chair, that if something is happening in a census tract where canvassing is going on, I'm not quite sure how we would have evidence to prove that the canvassers that we're paying are actually the ones perpetrating those actions. I don't know how we would, from a legal standpoint, prove that. All we can do is rely on the data that they're submitting through their outreach report forms and make sure that they've done those tasks to the best of their ability and that they've met those requirements according to the rules of the agreements that we have in place with them. Again, they are fully aware, and we will reach out to them and reiterate that there is to be only census outreach activities and nothing else, nothing related to campaigns, elections, anything of that nature. And again, we do have, council did help us include that language into their agreements. So at that point, I think we've done everything we possibly can to protect ourselves and protect the county against that.
I've walked precincts hundreds of times and knocked on the door of and been at the threshold of thousands and thousands and thousands of homes throughout Kern County. It is apparent when you are walking a precinct, when you see what are called bundle drops, where somebody has dropped numerous information about whoever's on there of interest to the person who's walked that neighborhood before you. If we receive information from our constituents that there is concern about that, I will talk to you. And I would like it to be vetted, and we can keenly look at that, because I want there to be no misunderstanding that if there is manipulation like that, I'm not suggesting anybody will, but if there is, we will be very careful not to pay them. So that's all we can do at this point, I think. Thank you. And Mr. Hightower, thank you.
Supervisor, if I could add, the Census Bureau itself has given clear guidance on what the canvassers can say and what they can do. And we've passed that on, and that's part of the agreements.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman.
Oh,
Chair.
I'm sorry. Supervisor Maggard, you're done. Supervisor Couch.
I would just comment, and I recognize the position you are in, Mr. Brown. You are a county employee, and you're looking out for the county. I appreciate that. But I think what you just said is we have put in the contract certain things and certain ways the vendors are supposed to behave. Certain things they should do, certain things they shouldn't do. But that's how we protect the county. If those sort of things happen, I think you said we're protected, meaning the county, and that's about all you can do. I didn't hear you say, well, if that happens, and we get multiple reports of that or something like that, or we have eyewitness testimony of people saying, I got this and I got this from the same person at the same time, that we're going to stop paying them. That's the only threat that there is to make sure that that doesn't happen. So how do we do that based on the comment you just, or the response you gave to Supervisor Maggard? I'm not trying to be difficult with you. I'm just want to be clear about that.
Madam Chair, Supervisor Couch, members of the board, if we have evidence that there are violations of the agreements that have been signed between the county and these various organizations, we will stop paying them.
We're contractually allowed to do that. Is that right?
Supervisor Couch through the chair, that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Maggard, did you plug back in? No, okay. Any other questions, concerns, and any potential action from this board? So am I to assume that this board is not going to support the staff's recommendation of their thoroughly vetted and presented program?
No, I didn't hear you call for the question.
I'm
so
sorry.
I'm happy to make that motion.
Thank you, Supervisor. We have a motion.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved, 3 ayes, 1 opposed, Supervisor Gleason, 1 abstention, Supervisor Couch.
Wonderful. This brings us to the end of our agenda this morning. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn to closed session to hear items 23, 24, and 25. Okay, without objection, so ordered. Thank you, and we'll see you back at 2.